Who's ready for the most exciting part of any new format? I know I sure am. This is absolutely the most exciting, most fun time in any new format. We get to apply some testing data, some stuff from Japan. We get to carry over some of the results from the previous format. It is great. I made sure to do up a new tier list so I can more properly express some thoughts. If you don't like my opinion, the link is in the description. Please share it with me. I love to see where you stand. Tell me what I got right, what I got wrong. That's all this is a guess. And if you enjoy the content, be sure to check something else out. We do have a top 10 video, the best cards out of 151 on the channel, and we're gonna have some Wigglytuff, some Blastoise, and some Alakazam action, hopefully before release day. With that said, let's dive right in and give some early thoughts. So we are gonna get this right out of the way. Remember that BDIF I was talking about in the Obsidian Flames? It has been knocked down a peg. It's still very, very good, but I think some decks being able to copy Lost Impact and trade with Giratina knocks it down slightly. It brings it back to the rest of the field. And of course, we're going to respect the Kyogre. It's a super convoluted win condition, but it does have answers to any deck, and the pilot, the strength of the deck, if it's done correctly, is one of the best in the game. Now let's show you what's bad on this list. Zoroark. Everybody's trying Zorobox. We've got the Scizors. We've got the Electivires. There's probably something I'm forgetting from 151 that we want to try, the Evolutions, you name it. I just feel like there's not enough discard synergy in format to really take advantage of it. And playing as a Lost Box player or a Tina player, when I see this deck, I just don't take prizes. I will sprinkle my Lost Mine damage around until I'm ready to take a 4 prize or a 5 prize turn, and then when the lead is so large, Zoro struggles. So that's the example of a bad deck. Everybody wants to know where do I stand with the Arbok. 3 energy, 150, rip 2 cards out of their hand. Many decks will play onboard draw engines, whether it's Dodrio, whether it's Barrel, you name it, Pidgeot. I don't think it's as strong as it should be. Darkrai is always good. I've seen people pop with it, but it's a very flawed deck, and you're very energy reliant, and there's a lot not to like. It stays on the list because it has its moments, but it is still one of those like bad decks. Sableye's not going anywhere. We're putting United Wings here as well. Same kind of deal. You just Lost Mine, you go through the deck. They want to rip to the end of their deck very quickly. I also think this deck is in a horrible spot come November, so it might even fall off the list by then, because there is a Pokemon that likes to take 2 prizes off each of your 1 prizers, so United Wings might never really have the chance it wanted. I'm sorry. Just the way it is. Hisuian, Samurott, Arbok, same kind of thing as the Darkrai. Just wanted to include it. Samurott hits some relevant numbers, moves some damage around, that kind of thing. You got your Arbok to clean up late game. Giovanni's Charisma, Raihan's Dark Patches. I just don't think hitting Dark for weakness is as relevant as it was. The field's starting to open up. It's more or less, how do you deal with the Sableyes? How do you deal with the Cramorants? Do you play Path? Do you want to shut them down? Again, it's here just to show you what struggles. Meowscarada needs a rotation or a buff or something. It's a tier 3 at the moment. It is a ton of fun. I am a believer. I think in November it might climb up maybe half a step because we're getting a way to search Grass Energy more reliably. But right now, it's low powered. You can win games, but it's not consistent enough for me to put any higher. But you know who's climbing out of the dog tier is Tyranitar. So I think the new Dodrio coming gives it that piece that it was missing. I think Giovanni's Charisma gives it something that it's missing between that and Raihan and Gutsy Pickaxe. Being able to draw 1 card for a damage counter helps. I think it's getting another tool in November that'll help it. It hits lightning weakness, so that's always good because I'm expecting a couple other decks that get hit for lightning weakness to rise. Tyranitar is also a hulking 340. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but I do think Tyranitar climbs out of 3, picks up a couple nice favorables, and climbs up to 2. So it's a functioning pile. Venusaur, we are doing the Kanto starter dirty. So it might be number 3 in the Pokedex, but it is number 3 on our tier list. The best way I can think of playing it right now, because its ability wants to be in the active spot, is Lost Box. So think Decidueye that we posted on the channel previously. You want to go check that out for an inspiration. That's how I've been playing it. It only hits for 150, and then it hits a couple status conditions. The new Paradox Pokemon coming in November also don't care for status conditions, so I don't know how much I like Venusaur's placing, even though it is hitting Grass weakness, which will knock out a lot of those Dark Pokemon. But a lot of the Dark Pokemon, aside from Charizard, are fighting in the bottom tables anyway, so Venusaur, I'm sorry, you got screwed. Alakazam, I am putting it in tier 3. Interesting ability with dimensional manipulation. I do have a video on the channel coming for it. I just don't think it's been solved, or I think it's another set away. Kind of like how Tyranitar got screwed until Dodrio came out. I think the piece that it's missing is the Xatu down the line that we're going to get. It's like a mini Shadow Rider. And I think it's just not quite there. We are still going to cover it. I'm hoping that by putting an idea out there, it will encourage somebody else to try to crack the card, because I do think Dimensional Manipulation is a very interesting attack, but not something I could honestly advocate for somebody to pick up and play. Sorry. All right, Wigglytuff. My bias is showing. I think Expanding Body is a very good ability to have. We can attach special energy, whether you're going with Lugia, whether you're going with Wigglytuff on its own. I don't see as much Path to the Peak. Yes, it is the best stadium in the format, but I'm not seeing as many abusers of it. Miraidon has forgone them. Arceus, Giratina has fallen off a cliff. Mew doesn't really play them. There's not a lot of decks that really capitalize on a 4 count of them, so I think as long as Expanding Body is in play, you have a pretty good chance. And constantly recycling 180, you'll wear them down. It's only going to catch maybe a couple top 8s at best. Let's show another tier 2. So Tinglu, but he fell off a cliff. So I think Tinglu's days as a pure deck are on the downswing. As nice as all the tools are, you know, we have the Koraidon, we have the Squawk ability, we have, what is her name? Gita, I believe? We do have a new Hitmonlee coming to sprinkle a little bit of damage around. I'm just not sure how strongly Tinglu works, considering a lot of these incredible EX abilities are on just that, EXs. So it doesn't even touch the Pidgeots, it doesn't touch the Chenpows, it doesn't touch Miraidon. It hits Miraidon for weakness. Doesn't touch Blastoise. Yes, it deals with the Curlius, but as soon as you're out of the Curlius stage, Gardevoir is back to doing the shenanigans it wants. So I don't, and they can always Crescent Claw the damage back. Blastoise. So I do expect a lot of Lightning decks in format. It has a lot to like outside of that. It is a 360 hit point Pokemon effectively with its ability. It has Irida. It has Palkia. It has Giovanni's Charisma. It has a ton of cards in its kit. And it's a V-Star Slayer. So you're trying to capitalize on a niche in the format, and I think once we kind of clean up that line, whether you're going Palkia, Babero, Blastoise, which is how I'm running it, then I think you're doing fine. Please don't play this with Baxcalibur. You're just going to make the deck more convoluted than it needs to be. And in November, I think it might get a small buff. But then again, we're also seeing a lot of Lightning Pokemon come out in November, so I love Blastoise. I love the card. I'm buying them IRL when they come out. Don't know if I see it any higher than that right now, only because of its weakness. If we can remove the weakness in some way, yes, I'm all for it. The Goodra climbs out of the bulk because I feel like there's going to be a little more Lugia in format. Rolling Iron, there's no instant OHKOs. You can heal with it. Goodra, if you can get the lone Goodra on the board, I think Rolling Iron can kind of win you some games. Very flawed, very flawed. But there's a lot of decks on here that hit for straight damage and they really don't manipulate their numbers. So I think Goodra can kind of sneak in and cheese one of those. You know what it is? Miraidon Alecki. So right now, there's a better way to play Miraidon. Don't play it this way. I know Alecki's tempting. 3 prizers. You really don't want to be doing that. There's still a lot of Sky Stone. There's still a lot of fighting types. Don't put 3 prizers on the board in Miraidon. We are getting the League Battle deck, but we're also getting some new tools in the kit in November, so it's worth reconsidering then. But right now, I'm putting it in tier 3 because there's much better ways to play it. And I've mentioned a lot of Miraidon. So Miraidon is one of those decks that really picked up hype with Mahone, with Sagen Park, with Jesse Parker at Pittsburgh. Like, there's a lot to like. You have your Flaffies for your Dynamotors. You have your tandem units for your setup. You can now use Stormy Mountain because you have Zapdos as your free retreater. There's a lot to like. I believe the Yokohama winning list was Miraidon, so I'm putting it up there in tier 1. Does it struggle against the other decks in the top tier? Yes, sometimes. Lost Box Kyogre you really don't want to see because you don't play Manaphy. Lost Ontina, they play Path to the Peak, so it can get dicey. They also have Sableye shenanigans. But most decks underneath tier 1, it doesn't mind. It can run right through them just based on the pure speed of a turn 1 generator. Zoroark. Again, I'm a believer of the Dodrio card. I think adding Dodrio to this deck really helps it because 1 damage counter, draw card, provides multiple uses, whereas the Gengar from Lost Origin, it only provided damage. This provides damage and draw, so it helps there, and it's repeatable, and it's a 1 energy attack cost, so you can free up. You don't have to play with Barrel if you don't want to. You can lean more into the Dodrios and draw a couple extra cards, and thin your deck accordingly that way. You might even be able to sneak in a 1/1 copy of Espeon VMAX and go from there. Sounds really dicey in theory, but you know what I mean. Zoroark is a very flexible card and it's worth considering. It's in the game right now for a reason, because there's a lot of potential for it. What do we got? We got to try to rapid fire this. Arctura, it's seen better days. Even though it's looking to capitalize on special energies, there's not many decks looking for special energy outside of Arceus decks, outside of Lugia decks. So I'm putting it tier 2, nothing higher than that. It won't see high enough play to be considered a 1.5 like back in the day. and this comes from a diehard Dura player. Arceus Regidrago. So this one won juniors, really riding off that. Did it kick my ass once or twice? Of course. I still think it's very messy trying to get those cards in the discard pile. What I do like next format though is maybe using the energy search discard from the ancient start of the Paradox Pokemon. Lets you discard a card and search for 2 basic energy, so you can grab your grasses, you can grab your fires, and it can discard your dragons. Maybe it gets better. Right now I'm not a fan. I don't see it performing very well in Japan to really change my mind. Pidgeot Charizard. Here you're the first 1.5. So what's not to like? You search any card with Pidgeot. Infernal Rain Charizard, you kind of set itself up. Burning Darkness. We have the new Charizard. Whether it's Bibarel or Arceus V-Star, I do think people are going to play it in high numbers. We all love a good Charizard card. We're loving this card. It hits for a lot. Very enjoyable. It kind of struggles into one prize decks. The Charmander maybe helps that against Lost Mine, but it's not a fix. We'll keep experimenting with it. I don't think people are going to put it down. I think it'll have its day. It'll see some top placings. Maybe win an event. We'll see. All right, next Charizard. We're going to also throw that in 1.5. So I haven't tested this one, and it's in 1.5 for that very reason. So the Refinement and the Buddy Catch, Curlias and Gardevoir, Glades, just improve consistency. It's extremely linear. I can smack through 6 prizes before you can, kind of deal. 330 is a decent body. That might be enough to get you over the line. I mean, Arceus decks have just been kicking around for that reason alone, so maybe it's good. Maybe I'm overvaluing it. Should be tier 2. We're going to put it 1.5 because I'm not entirely sure. I am putting Lost Box Zard in tier 1. Come for me in the comments. It's my list. You disagree. Totally get it. Charizard's a 330 hit point body. That's huge. It accelerates to itself. We can play at multiple stadiums. We can play Radiant Charizard. We have these shenanigans of Cramorant and Sableye. It's doing well in the current SPE event. I don't think it loses anything. I think, if anything, it wants to see your Lugias. It wants to see your Miraidons. Because once you're big enough, they can't really smack through you without doing 2 hits. And you do play Manaphy, so you're not as afraid of Zapdos. There's no prize cheating shenanigans there. I'm telling you, the deck feels very open. I like Intel Urshifu as a 1.5. So it likes the Comfeys. It likes all these small evolving Pokemon. But once they're set up, it doesn't like them as much. You have to really capitalize. It's a very fragile, combo-heavy deck. And with a lot of lightning in format, not being able to bench your Inteleons as safely. So if Miraidon comes in, sets up, attacks turn 1, takes 2 prizes, you're kind of behind the 8 ball there. If it sees the right plays, if it draws well, it's, you know, chasing that tier 1 doorstep. I do like it. It's always in my top 5 decks that I like to play. This is your Lost Box Greninja Jank. Depending on how you fill out your Lost Box, that's what this is supposed to be. So this isn't the guaranteed Turbo, the guaranteed Kyogre. This is if you throw in your Zamazentas, or you throw in your Tropiuses, or if you experiment. The core to Lost Box is very consistent. And as soon as you slap Greninja in, that's what this is classifying as. How you choose to finish your Lost Box and the strength of the pilot behind the deck will determine it, how good it places. But I think Lost Box Greninja is a very popular combination, a very strong combination, so I couldn't put it any lower than 1.5 because there's no way in hell. Alright, this is the Meta Calling Mew. Is it a tier 1 deck? No. It is one of those, if you forget about it, it is going to perform very well kind of decks. It almost stole Pittsburgh. It was in the top 8, top 4. It's just very strong. Rotation is the only thing going to kill it. Charizard didn't touch it. Drapion didn't touch it. Spiritomb didn't touch it. It plays well with Path. It's one of those decks. We covered how to play in the previous format for Mew. I don't think much of that changes. So if you want to check that video out and support the channel, please do in the description. So Mew will stay 1.5. It's the new Arcdura. Depending on where the meta is, it's almost a 1. Snorlax Colorless. Alright, so Lugia Colorless, I'm a big fan of. I think all the 1 prizes we have at our disposal, the new copy of Mew EX in the deck, the Jet Energies, the Gift Energies, being able to use Iono. I'm a big believer in this one. I don't think it really loses anything. I think it likes seeing Giratina. If you look at Colorless Lugia and you look at everything below it, you're like, yeah, I can take my chances with that. I can do pretty well. I can play the 1 prize game. Constantly hitting 180 with Thumping Snorlax. I do think Mew just kind of opens up this build and gives it something it was sorely lacking. However, I don't think Single Strike Lugia gets any worse. I don't. Coin flips be damned. This is still a very good deck. So Lugia is poised to have a good 151 format before Paradox Rift absolutely neuters the deck. Tyranitar hits 320. You have your Stonjourners to deal with your Miraidons. You have your Serenas to mess with their Sableye math. You have your Archeops to constantly be accelerating. You can get Lugias off the board and play with a single strike package. I don't think you need the Urshifu at the moment, but I do think that Lugia has a lot to like. If you're a Lugia fan, or a Lugia bot as they're calling us, I think it's a tier 1 deck. You can't go wrong. Tier 1 decks. Let's take a look at Turbo Lost Box. Turbo Lost Box is a very strong deck once you know how to play it. I'm working on the how to play guide. I think it's very straightforward. It's just managing your resources, trying to look for tempo plays, or figuring out where can you sneak ahead with the Sableye. Dragonite hits strong. Raikou might pull some weight with the Lugia format. Skystone might be worth reinvesting in. Turbo Lost Box does a lot of filthy things. It's actually quite fun once you get the nuances of the deck. I think it's strong. I think it plays well into a lot of the decks at the top, and you're kind of just at the mercy of your opening hand. Arctina, trash. Put her into tier 2. Path Judge, gotcha, gets there. Mew, double turbo. There's better ways to play Mew. If you're going to play Mew at all and you're going to risk it for the biscuit, please play Fusion Mew. You need that pressure. I get Control-y, but like certain decks are just going to look at you and run you over with a Buzzsaw. Arc Pidgeot. Not quite sure which pairing it with. You can go grass, you can go water, you can run Poppy Shenanigans. I did cover it in a previous video. You can play a lot with it. The deck's very flexible. What you pair it with determines the strength of the rest of the deck. And then we have Sablezard. This is the OG Sablezard. So we'll put you 1.5. It does like to feast on some of the other Lost Box variants, so that could probably give it a good swing if it pairs off on those. I think it likes to play against Lugia very well. Radiant, or Miraidon is also not too bad. You might see them try to slot in Babarrels, Melodics, hell, Mew EX, some Mirage Gates. But then at that point, it's like, why not just play Charizard EX in the deck? 1.5 because it's a strong pick, but there are better options above it. Alright, Chien-Pao Baxcalibur. I am a big believer in this deck. I think it's only going to get better. It is a little fragile with the Baxcalibur, but I think having Shivery Chill and Absolute Zero and your Palkias and your Pidgeots and your Cross Switchers and your Canceling Colognes, I think you can really build the deck for what you expect to see. It's strong, it has OHKO potential, it has uptrade potential, it's getting some tools in November that's only going to make it better. I've seen a few people compare it to a Black Kyurem Blastoise deck, which kind of intrigues me, but it's way before my time. I think it does play well into a lot of these decks. We're also playing Manaphy, so we're not as concerned about the Aqua Storm. We can figure out our Lugia matchup there. And of course, the last deck that makes its way into tier 1 is Gardevoir. It loses nothing, but it gains the option to play Mew EX. And all of these other decks it likes to see in the top. Lost Box, of course, is more like a 50-50. Lugias it trades a little favorably into. Chien-Pao depends on the strength of the pilot. Charizard can sometimes whiff and you take advantage. Tina could be iffy. Gardevoir doesn't lose anything. I think the deck is still very strong. I'm not a fan of it, but it is very strong. This is my list. Is there a BDIF this format? Absolutely not. This has probably been the most wide open the game has felt since the year has started. I think that's great. This is my early predictions. Argue with me down in the comments below. What do you think? Do you have a BDIF? Do you think I placed the deck too highly? Have you entered for the giveaway for the 151 ETB yet? If not, what are you doing? Go check out Twitter. And if you've stuck around until the end, come on guys, drop a sub. It would be greatly appreciated. So until next time guys, take care and have fun playing Pokemon.